The rain the night before brought forth the most beautiful flowers our garden had ever seen. The buds must have begun putting forth their blossoms during the nightlight sky, because come morning, everything had changed in the garden. For that matter, everything had changed. In looking back, I now realize it was soon to become one of the most majestic days of my life. It was on this day they came knocking on my bedroom windows, calling for me to come out into the garden. Although I was just a young boy, I can still recall it all so clearly, as though it had just happened yesterday. After all, I was just one day short of turning 8, and our home was filled with the excitement and smells in preparation for my birthday. Excitement? Yes, but not like the excitement I was about to soon discover. You see, this day was not just an ordinary day. This was to become an extraordinary day, set aside for something very special. I remember after awakening that morning, how I ran to our front porch window, as I did so many times before, calling out to Mr. Sun, "Top of the day, sir," as if he was acknowledging me by his brilliant presence. I noticed, though, that on this particular morning, the sun was shining forth more softly dressed in all its golden rays, touching down more sweetly upon the flowers in our garden in all their majestic colors, shining through onto my favorite tree in the garden that I so loved to climb as a young boy. But who in their wildest imagination could have ever possibly dreamt or prepared for what was about to take place on this most remarkable day? And out of all the children in the whole world, why did they come to visit with me? But then again, that is not what is most important here. In spite of everything, when they come knocking on your windows, it is for one to question why. I realize in reminiscing about these experiences that it brings to mind what exactly took place at that time. Allow me, if I may, to share with you in greater detail the most wonderful experience of my childhood. You see, this is not just a story, it really happened in the world of my childhood imagination. I could never forget that morning and how Daddy knocked on my bedroom door and said to me, "Rise and shine, it's time to get up, and we can't start the day without you." How I yawned and stretched and moaned and groaned, and then finally I jumped out of my bed and raced to our front porch window to greet Mr. Sun the top of the day. And how could I ever forget the lip-smacking, taste-teasing smells that were coming from Mama's kitchen? I knew there was something special baking inside of Mama's oven, but I didn't know what. I also knew there was only one way to find out, and that was by opening Mama's kitchen door to take a sneak peek. But whoa! To my surprise, when I slowly opened the door, I quickly discovered that it was nothing other than the jaw-dropping sight of my birthday cake coming out from my Mama's oven. Oh, what joy filled my heart as Mom and Daddy caught me peeping through the kitchen door. They could not help but smile, seeing my happy little sneaking peeping face. I then heard a strange noise that sounded as if it were coming from our front porch window, which reminded me of what I thought I had heard earlier in the morning while I was still half asleep. Rat-a-tat-tat, rat-a-tat-tat, rat-a-tat-tat-tat. What is that clamor that I hear? Is there a little birdie at our window? Rat-a-tat-tat, rat-a-tat-tat, rat-a-tat-tat-tat. There goes that crazy little sound again. I must find out where it's coming from before it drives poor Daddy up the wall and across the ceiling. And then he'll be found sitting in the middle of Mama's chandelier. And Mama would not like that, Daddy said. Rat-a-tat-tat, rat-a-tat-tat, rat-a-tat-tat-tat. As I slowly approached our front porch window, I gradually bit by bit, pulled back Mama's living room curtain to see what all the excitement was about. In doing so, I could not believe what my eyebrow-raising little face was seeing. There, standing on my very own front porch, was a little angel boy, dressed in silver-colored sneakers. And climbing up the stairs, not too far from behind, was a little angel girl with beautiful, colorful wings and a halo to match. What is going on here? I asked myself. My birthday is not until tomorrow, and we're not having a costume party anyway. And furthermore, who are these children? I know I have never seen them before now, but they do appear to have a familiar quality about them. Looking through the window, I asked the little angel boy, "What is your name?" He replied by telling me, "My name is Malcolm. I'm your guardian angel, sent by God on this very special day for a very special reason." I was so taken aback by what Malcolm had said that my toes began to curl up inside of my slippers as I pondered Malcolm's words. Guardian angel, sent by God, special day, special reason? I then began to wonder what this was all about. Could this be for real, or am I still asleep? I know I'm not asleep. Malcolm knew exactly what I was thinking and whispered to me, "Yes, James, God has chosen you, and that is all that I am privileged to say for now." I was so delighted by the thought that God had chosen me that I could not help but ask Malcolm, "Is there something that you would like for me to do?" Malcolm replied, "Yes. Tomorrow on your birthday, I would like for you to come out to the garden and play with us." "Yes, yes," I replied. "I would love to come out into the garden and play with you and your friend, but first I have to get permission from Mama." That night I could hardly sleep because my mind was filled with the anticipation of my special birthday to come. And not to forget that other matter, is Malcolm truly my very own personal guardian angel sent from heaven? As one could only imagine, it was a little hard for me to understand, let alone believe. But then again, why else would children come to our home dressed up like angels? And furthermore, how could they have possibly known that tomorrow was my birthday? The very next morning, after I had finished eating all of my hot pancakes, I asked Mama, "May I please go out to the garden and play?" Mama said, "Yes, dear, that will be fine." I was so happy that Mama had said yes that I excused myself from the table before drinking all of my milk. I then ran to the garden as if I had wings attached to my sneakers. I could not help but wait to see Malcolm and to find out what this special day was all about. After arriving at the garden, I could see that Malcolm was standing next to my favorite tree. In addition, I noticed that on this day, Malcolm brought even more of his friends to play with us in the garden. I smiled as I gazed at all of the angel children, and then I said to them, "Good morning, everyone." To my surprise, Malcolm and his friends were so pleased to see me that they replied by saying, "Top of the day, sir." And then they all began to giggle. This was because they knew this is how I would address Mr. Sun every morning after I had awakened from a good night's sleep. Malcolm then said, "We are so happy that you're able to be with us today. Your mama must be a very special lady." "Yes, she is," I acknowledged. Malcolm followed by saying, "Now that you are here, I would like to introduce you to some of my friends. This is Melissa. You remember seeing Melissa yesterday on the front porch with me." "Yes, I do remember, and it is so nice to meet you, Melissa." Malcolm then went on to say, "This is Felicity, this is Flo, and this is Fraybeer. It is such a delight to meet all of you." I then slowly looked back towards Malcolm to ask him the question that had been on my mind. "Are you really and truly my guardian angel?" Malcolm smiled and answered, "Yes, James, I am your guardian angel sent from heaven, and for that matter, we are all God's angels." I was so happy that Malcolm was my guardian angel that I replied, "I have never met a real live angel until yesterday, and now I have met 5 of them. That's pretty cool." Fraybeer smiled and said, "Do you recall hearing a knocking sound on your bedroom windows yesterday morning?" "Yes," I said. "I thought I heard a crazy little sound when I was still half asleep. Rat-a-tat-tat, rat-a-tat-tat, rat-a-tat-tat-tat." "That was I," Fraybeer said, and then he giggled. Once Fraybeer giggled, they all began to giggle, and then they could not seem to stop themselves from giggling. The reason for this is because they were all accountable for the rat-a-tat-tats on our windows. Flo finally said, "Enough of all this giggling. We have an important day to celebrate here." With that being said, I noticed that all of their eyes were gazed upon me, and my mind began to twirl in wonderment as to what this big day was all about. The next thing I knew was that Malcolm and Flo together were reaching for my hands and motioning for me to close my eyes and to walk with them behind my favorite tree. And closing my eyes, the rest of the angel children followed from behind. As we all made our way to the back of the tree, I was told by Malcolm, "Open your eyes." In doing so, I was flabbergasted by what I was witnessing before me. There, hovering above the ground in a large, brilliant, glorious white light, was a beautiful lady holding a baby in her arms. Standing next to her was a man who appeared to be of great importance. And looking back towards the lady, it seemed as if the baby was playing peekaboo with his mother. The lady would smile as the baby would cover and uncover his little head, and then they both began to giggle. To my surprise, when the lady looked towards me, I felt such joy that I didn't know what to say. So instead of saying anything, I just continued to look at her, admiring her sparkling blue eyes. She wore a bluish-colored gown and a whitish-colored veil that draped over her head, which were both covered in twinkling stars. Her long black wavy hair could be seen beneath her veil, and above her head appeared a crown of exactly 12 stars. The baby that she was holding also had sparkling blue eyes, but his hair was a brownish blonde color. He was dressed in a whitish-colored gown, which had a circle on his chest, with the letters I, N, or I, and over his head appeared a shining halo of light. The man who was standing next to the lady had beautiful green eyes, brown hair, and a brown beard. He was dressed in a long brownish robe, which was covered in white flowers, similar to the Easter lilies that grow in our garden at Easter time. Over his head could also be seen a halo of radiant light. And looking once again towards the beautiful lady, I asked her, "Are you who I think you are?" She smiled and replied, "Yes, my child, it is I." I then asked the beautiful lady, "Are they too who I think they are?" She smiled once more and answered, "Yes, my child, they too." To my surprise, I said, "It is really you." At this remark, I fell to my knees and then said, "Mom and Daddy told me that you were for real, and they were right." With this reply, the Blessed Mother continued to smile and gently looked upon all of her children who were there kneeling before her. She then turned to St. Joseph and smiled. In his response, St. Joseph nodded his head and smiled at Our Lady. I then said, "Dear Lady, is there a special reason why the Holy Family of God would want to visit with me on my birthday?" She said, "Yes, God has especially chosen your birthday for our visit. This is so that we can celebrate the gift of life with you on this most joyful day which God has created." The Blessed Mother then softly placed baby Jesus onto the grass. Malcolm, Melissa, Felicity, Fraybeer, and Flo, who were near kneeling beside me, smiled as baby Jesus walked towards me and slowly climbed into my arms. Oh, dear lady, God has made me so happy today. With this said, and baby Jesus in my arms, we danced through the flowers in the garden, singing a song that the angel children taught me as the day went on. They told me that the purpose of this song was to commemorate the special visit and to always remember this special day. The angel children titled their song the Peekaboo Song, and it goes like this. Angels, angels everywhere, knocking on my windows, climbing up the stairs, praying in the garden, singing hymns in the trees, all about the Father's love for me, all about the Father's love for me. Angels, angels I have seen, picking Mayflowers to crown our queen. She's the loveliest that heaven's ever seen. Angels, angels I have seen. Have you seen the angels I have seen? Singing upside down, down, singing all around, round, singing upside down, down, singing all around, round. All about the Father's love for me, all about the Father's love for you. Baby Jesus in the garden playing peekaboo, Blessed Mother in the garden playing peekaboo, Saint Joseph in the garden playing I see you. Angels, angels I have seen. Baby Jesus in the garden playing peekaboo, James in the garden playing peekaboo. All the angels in the garden playing we see you, baby Jesus. Angels, angels I have seen. Have you seen the angels I have seen? Singing upside down, down, singing all around, round, singing upside down, down, singing all around, round. All about the Father's love for me, all about the Father's love for you. Malcolm, Melissa, Felicity, Fraybeer, and Flo, Blessed Mother, baby Jesus, James, and Saint Joseph, playing in the garden, the Majestic garden, on this most glorious day. Hey, 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 singing upside down, down, singing all around, round, singing upside down, down, singing all around, round. All about the Father's love for me, all about the Father's love for you. Flowers growing everywhere, sun shining down on you and me, on this most majestic day, which the Lord has made. Peekaboo, 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 Jesus loves you. Peekaboo, 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 Jesus loves you. After we had prayed, played, and sung, I noticed that St. Joseph was waving for all of us to come to the special tree in the garden. As we approached St. Joseph, he knelt down on both of his knees and squeezed me gently and kissed me on my forehead and said, "Happy birthday, James." I replied, "Thank you so much, St. Joseph." He then said to me, "Always remain good." I promise you, St. Joseph, I will always try my very best. At this, St. Joseph smiled and picked me up from the ground with my little legs dangling in the air and kissed me a second time and said, "I love you, James." I smiled back and said, "I love you too, St. Joseph." He then announced to everyone that it was time to go home, including me, because I had a special birthday party to attend. I then asked St. Joseph and Blessed Mother if they could please stay so that I could introduce them to Mama and Daddy. Blessed Mother lovingly looked down towards me with her beautiful blue eyes, smiled, and tenderly said to me, "My dear child, we would love to stay with you longer, but we must return home. Don't worry, my little angel, your parents will understand." Our Lady followed by saying, "Please remember, we will always be nearby, even though at times you may feel that we are far away from you. However, if you look deep within your heart, you will find us there." I understood at once what Our Lady was telling me as she so gently held my face in her hands and kissed me on my cheek and whispered, "I love you, my little birthday boy." "I love you too, Blessed Mother." At that moment, she wished me a happy birthday, and we both smiled. Then, one by one, each of the angel children hugged me and wished me a happy birthday. Malcolm, my guardian angel, who was the last angel to give me a hug, squeezed me so tightly that he nearly squeezed the stuffing right out of me. He then giggled and said, "I will always be close by." Malcolm followed by presenting me with a special birthday gift that he believed would serve me well throughout my life. As St. Joseph and Blessed Mother stood holding hands with baby Jesus, I noticed that little Jesus kept looking in my direction. He then began to speak to me by saying, "Peekaboo, peekaboo, I love you, I love you." I was so taken by surprise that little Jesus could talk that I started to giggle, and I replied, "I love you too, baby Jesus. I love you too. I love all of you." I then gave baby Jesus a gentle hug and kissed him on his little face. He smiled and once again said to me, "Peekaboo, peekaboo, I love you." He was so cute that we all started giggling, including St. Joseph and Blessed Mother. The time then came for the Holy Family and the angel children to return home. As we all waved goodbye to one another, I realized that the same brilliant white light that I had seen earlier that morning surrounding the Holy Family was now surrounding them once again. The beautiful light then gradually ascended into the sky and took on the form of the Star of Bethlehem and vanished out of sight. I knew then it was time for me to return home as well. As St. Joseph had mentioned, I had a birthday party to attend. I then slowly began to leave the garden, pondering all of the wonderful events of my special day. When I arrived at our front porch door, it dawned on me that I hadn't told my parents about my special day in the garden. In realizing this, I swiftly turned the golden knob and pushed the door open. To my surprise, I heard everyone singing a birthday song to me. After everyone had wished me a happy birthday, I blew out the candles on my cake and made a special birthday wish. My wish was that one day I would have a little brother or sister to play with in the garden. We all then sat around Mama's dining room table, eating oodles of vanilla cake, along with chocolate and strawberry ice cream. As soon as we had finished eating, we began to play musical chairs and pin the tail on the donkey. A little later, I opened up my presents, and then the celebration slowly came to an end. I afterwards heard Mama and Daddy calling for me to come into the kitchen. As Daddy saw me peeping through the kitchen door, he said to me, "Happy birthday, son. Come over here. Your mom and I want to give you a special birthday kiss and a big hug." Mama hugged me first and kissed me all over and wished me a happy birthday, followed by Daddy hugging me and giving me a kiss too. I then kissed both of my parents and told them how much I loved them and appreciated everything they have ever done for me. They both smiled, and Daddy said, "It's our joy to care for you, son." I then proceeded to tell them about my special day in the garden. I could see by the look on their faces they were both a little concerned. Mom and Daddy really didn't know what to think about my special day. One thing, though, was very clear. They wanted to hear more. So the three of us sat down at Mama's kitchen table and had a conversation over a cup of hot tea. As I sat in my chair fidgeting back and forth, telling them all about my heavenly encounter, I expressed to them there was one thing I didn't quite understand, and that was the letters I, N, or I on baby Jesus' gown. What do those letters mean, Mama? What do those letters mean, Daddy? When I asked my parents this question, Daddy's eyes got so big that I thought they were going to bug right out of his head. He then softly said to me, "Son, those letters stand for Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews." With that being said, I noticed that my parents got up from their chairs and began glancing out of our kitchen window into the garden. Mama then said to Daddy, "The flowers are unusually beautiful today, and how did they all seem to bloom overnight?" Daddy responded by saying, "You are absolutely right, Mama. The flowers are unusually beautiful today." I then told them, "I have something else to share with you." As I reached into my pocket, I slowly pulled out the birthday gift that Malcolm had given to me. In showing it to my parents, I gradually began to unwrap my present. To all of our surprise, there sitting in the middle of a golden color box was a radiant blue rosary. I smiled in excitement and exclaimed, "It's a rosary!" Mama and Daddy looked on in surprise. I then said, "Malcolm told me that this gift would serve me well throughout my life." My parents both agreed, and Daddy said, "We are so very proud of you, son." From that day on, my parents never questioned me again about my special day in the garden. I believe this is because they knew what I had told them was real to me. After all, as Mama said, when the angels come knocking on one's windows, it is for one to question why. And just in case you were wondering about my special birthday wish, I'm happy to share with you that it not only came true, but I was blessed with two loving little brothers and a beautiful sister to play with in the garden. Who would have ever thought that a birthday wish to God would turn out to be an answer to a prayer? Amen.